Okay, I'd like to call to order the regular East Lansing City Council meeting of Tuesday, June 17th, 2025. Could we have the roll call, please?
Councilmember Altman.
Here.
Councilmember Meadows.
Here.
Councilmember Watson. Mayor Pro Tem Singh.
Here.
Mayor Brookover.
Here. Could we have a, go ahead.
Yeah, I have a motion to excuse Councilmember Watson, her absence on grounds of family travel to an out-of-state commitment.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Could we have a motion to approve the agenda? Moved by Meadows, seconded by
Second.
Altman. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. We have before us minutes of a City Council discussion-only meeting of June 10th, 2025, and a regular City Council meeting of June 3rd, 2025. Do we have motions with regard to those?
Move approval of both sets of minutes.
Moved by Altman, seconded by Singh. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed, motion passes unanimously. Communications, we have written communications received by council are posted on the online agenda packet. I have several blue sheets from people who want to talk tonight, which is great, but let me just say there's a number of slips with regard to the gas station proposal, and we're going to have a public hearing on that tonight. We will not be voting on that issue tonight. Usually we do have a two-meeting process with that, which is what I would expect we'll do tonight. And so those who wish to speak on that issue can either take time now during public comment or speak during the public hearing. So when I get to those slips, I'm just going to call your name and just let me know whether you want to talk now or later during the public hearing. In the meantime, Ken Jones, you don't have a topic on yours you wanted to talk about? I'm sorry, what? Okay, all right. You're here to answer any questions we have on that? Okay, thank you. Dr. Carissa Buchholz.
Good evening. My name is Carissa Buchholz, and I live at 1030 Glenhaven Avenue. I want to start by thanking the city staff for moving up the timeline on the Harrison Road project and getting an RFP out so promptly. I imagine this took considerable effort to do, and I am very grateful for the work that is being done here as it aims to make the Glencairn Elementary School crosswalk safer for our kids and our community members. So I'm very excited to see this project launch. I want to begin my statement with a thought experiment. If you're a driver, I want you to think about the fastest you have ever driven a car. What were the conditions and what was the context of the situation? One of the fastest times I drove a car was on a highway in northern Indiana when I was 20. The highway I was on was straight, wide, flat, and had few cars on it, surrounded by farm fields with few trees. I remember this well because I got a speeding ticket, which scared me enough that I stopped driving so fast, and I haven't gotten one since. Now I want you to think about a time when you were on a road with few cars but drove very slowly. What were the road conditions? The time I drove the slowest without many other cars around was on a rural road in the Arkansas Ozark Mountains. It was steep, unpaved, narrow, curvy with lots of potholes, and we couldn't drive much more than 10 miles an hour without damaging our car. It is well established in the urban planning community that straight, flat, wide roads encourage motorists to go fast. Our crosswalk at Harrison and North Lawn poses a serious safety hazard to our children and community members because the cars go too fast. They go too fast because the community has lacked adequate traffic enforcement and the road has little infrastructure other than pedestrian yield sign in the middle of the crosswalk to slow motorists down, which I do want to thank the city for putting in, as I have seen cars with brake lights on as they approach the crosswalk as they're trying to avoid hitting the sign. I am concerned that the Public Works Department and the statement from the Spicer Group and the RFP packet have heavily focused on leveling the hill, with minimal attention on how to slow down traffic, which is the root of the problem for pedestrian safety. Leveling the hill without putting measures in place to reduce traffic speed is problematic, as it will allow motorists to see the stoplight at the Saginaw intersection sooner, creating a runway effect which will encourage cars to move faster, as it is well established that straight, flat roads allow motorists to move faster, more comfortably. It is my hope that the consultant will investigate multiple options to slow down traffic and make this crossing safer so that a solution can be found that addresses both engineering requirements and community feedback. One option I hope the consultant will investigate is to place a hawk pedestrian signal at the crosswalk and place a stoplight at the top of the hill to ensure traffic stops before descending the hill when the hawk is activated. This would allow motorists the visibility of seeing the stoplight before descending the hill if the hawk device is activated, while allowing traffic to move through freely most of the time, except when a pedestrian pushes the signal button. I have seen similar setups in mountainous regions where it was not feasible to significantly alter the topography. Furthermore, this approach would also save the city the expense and controversy of lowering the hill. Other steps that the city can take immediately include prohibiting heavy trucks on the stretch of Harrison between Grand River and Saginaw, a move that was recommended in May by the Transportation Commission, and utilizing PACE parking enforcement officers as crossing guards when no regular crossing guard is available, as these staff should be able to reliably fill these positions since they're already working for the city. I would also like to encourage the council to pass an ordinance similar to that which has been passed in Ann Arbor, Grand Rapids, and Traverse City, requiring motorists to stop for pedestrians approaching the crosswalk, not just when they are within it. The Glen Cairn Elementary School community looks forward to continuing to work with the city to make the crosswalk safer, both for our current generation of students and for the future generations of students who have yet to attend our school. Thank you for your time tonight.
Thank you. Carrie Freeman.
Good evening, Council. Thank you for your time tonight. My name is Carrie Freeman, and I'm an attorney in town with Grua Freeman, Tupper & Young. I am representing Greg Ballline. Many of you I've talked to already about what I'm going to bring up today, but I'm also here as a City of East Lansing resident, long time. I went to MSU undergrad and MSU Law School, and I live here now with my family. And I love this city. And that is why I'm here today. I'm requesting that the council introduce and refer a proposed ordinance amendment to Ordinance 1384 to the Planning Commission on their next available consent agenda, which I believe is July 15th. I have provided all of you the letter that I provided to Mr. Bellman that contains the ordinance amendment, and it's redlined, so it's easy to see. This ordinance, just real quickly, modifies and presents a fee in lieu option for developers, something that a majority of cities in this country are actually doing, especially those that are thriving right now. And I've also provided you tonight this book, and it's the proposed redevelopment of the student bookstore. It's got a lot of great detail in there. I urge you all to please take a look at it. And I am, of course, here for any questions, and so is my client, Mr. Ballline. This is a very real concept for development of the SBS area, and it would utilize this fee in lieu option, and that's why we're kind of introducing them together. And this project would help protect the economic vitality of our city and significantly alleviate the financial crisis that we're currently in. There are a lot of information in there that will help you see that. I would note, I know you guys have already approved the agenda. I was trying to possibly see if I could have the agenda amended today to allow this ordinance to be introduced and referred to the Planning Commission today. It would be appropriate because you are looking at the ordinance under section 4.1 of your business agenda, which it directly kind of connects with. And so it really would be appropriate to take a look at this evening. I don't know if it's even possible. I think it is. If any of you have it in your hearts to go back and amend the agenda tonight, I would love to have an opportunity to have it sped up by a whole month, and it would also ensure that the city doesn't miss out on this amazing opportunity that the Ballline family has come up with to continue the legacy of the student bookstore. Yes, so I appreciate you all very much for the time you've taken to talk to me. about this project and for the time you've given me here tonight. And I look forward to working on this with you to take it to completion. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I have a number of slips which I am interpreting are relative to the gas station proposal. I'm just going to read the names, and if you want to pass during public comment and speak during the public hearing on the exact agenda item, just please say pass. So Pat Gillespie, Robbie Van Artsen.
I'll go now, if that's all right.
I'm sorry?
I'll go now, if that's all right.
Yes, it is all right. Yeah.
All right, are we ready? All right, good evening, neighbors. Thank you so much for your time. I do want to speak now because while I do want to talk briefly about the gas station, that is only one of the things I'd like to discuss tonight. Briefly with the gas station first, some of my concerns on this are I'm opposed to that current location. I think that the Mayor already has perfectly sized outlots in their own lot. That'd be a better location for another gas station. I am concerned with its impact on the catabus system. We have many, many people who live further north on Abbott in that area, and that is one of the busiest catabus lines in the city. We already don't have enough capacity to meet people at the third stop, which is my stop on that line, to be able to, they're turning people off of the bus because it's already full at that point. If we build another gas station at this intersection, we're building for cars, we're going to get more cars. So this is going to add to the traffic on an already heavy route for public transportation and pedestrian traffic at that location. The next topic I want to discuss is the discussion we had started 2 weeks ago for the Inman, Dale Inman's idea for a condo project here on Abbott Road. I was really excited about what Councilmember Altman had mentioned about the addition of protected indoor bicycle infrastructure. If we're building indoor infrastructure for cars, it should just be a given that we should build for other modes of transportation too. This is within our city core. We should be building for all sorts of different types of modes for bus travel, for pedestrians to be able to feel comfortable in this place, for cyclists and for cars too, but not just for cars. I had discussed with Lieutenant O'Hario after the meeting of why the police had recommended more parking at that site. And the original plan for the site that Dale Inman had suggested was 1 car per resident for the site, which is pretty standard. They were concerned that there might be more individuals who could potentially need a parking spot besides just the residents, which for that site, the target audience is, as Dale Inman had mentioned, is for people who are coming out of town for short stays here for games, perhaps, for professors out at the school. And these are people who would be better served by more options of travel, not just more parking spots. So I think that is I would like to raise to Dale Inman that we please consider that probably 1 parking spot per individual is enough. The last topic I'd like to briefly mention is that we have just had a connection on the trail system right outside of town. So this is just a fun topic for our neighbors to know that you can now take the Northern Tier Trail off Abbey Road, down Coolidge Road, all the way to Ranney Park, and then south through Ranney Park. The construction on Michigan Avenue is completed, so now there's a pedestrian and multi-use path intersection over Michigan Avenue south to the River Trail. So it's just complete within the last few weeks, and it's gorgeous. There's waterfalls all along this route, and I would recommend that if you are looking to have a great route to see our area just here right next to our city. It's Lansing Township, I believe, but it is easy access between our trails, which is a huge resource for our city. So if you'd like to have another route around our cities, we have one that's a great connection now. So that is all I have for you tonight. Thank you for coming out, showing up. I appreciate you all.
Thank you. Nathan Thomas? Sure.
My name's Nate Thomas, resident here in East Lansing, and I just want to speak and advocate for the building approval of the Meyer gas station on Lake Lansing and Abbott Road. My wife and I live just a couple blocks from there. We often frequent the Speedway, and we had talked about before in conjunction with this that it'd be nice to just have a cleaner, newer alternative to get gas there, as well as ease of getting groceries. And as an accountant, I know and understand that it'll improve the corporate tax base for the city and benefit us in that way. So I think it'll be a net positive for us. So,
Okay, thank you.
thanks.
Richard Ballender? Okay, thank you. Jessica Maxon? Okay, thank you. Jim Rosema? Matt Levitt? Greg Maxon? Kirsten Keebler? Okay. Do we have anybody in the queue?
Yes, there's one caller in the queue.
Please.
Sonia, if you'd like to speak, go ahead now.
I'm good, thank you.
Okay, that's it for the queue?
That's all.
Okay, moving ahead to communications from the mayor and council members. Dr. Altman.
No report tonight, Mayor. Thank you.
Mr. Meadows.
No report tonight.
Councilperson Singh.
Pass.
Okay. I'll pass for tonight. City manager report.
Just a couple items. First, the summer version of the dialogue is at the post office and should be mailed out yet this week. And so a lot of good information in there. The second item I wanted to bring up is that we're holding a town hall meeting on Wednesday, July 9th, inviting the community to talk about traffic issues and for the city to share information on how the city's addressing those traffic issues. It will be at the library, 950 Abbott Road, starting at 6 p.m. So that's the initial invite. We'll send more communications out to our residents, encouraging them to attend, because traffic and traffic-related matters seem to be very much at the forefront. And so we want to share the progress that we're making in addressing those concerns.
Okay, thank you. City attorney report?
Nothing to report this
Okay,
evening.
thank you. We move then to the consent agenda. Mr. Bellman?
So consent agenda 3.1 is approve the following appointments or reappointments to boards and commissions. A is reappoint Justin Houston to the Brownfield Redevelopment Authority for a full term ending June 30th, 2029. B is reappoint Bob Kovic to the Brownfield Redevelopment Authority for a full term ending June 30th, 2029. C is appoint Lila Abdul to the Housing Commission for a partial term ending December 2025. 3.2 is approve street closure for the National Night Out Touch a Truck event on Tuesday, August 5th on Library Lane, just beyond the library entrance, around the bend to Grove Street from 5:30 to 8 p.m. 3.3 is approve of several street closures throughout East Lansing for the MSU Homecoming Parade on October 10th, 2025. 3.4 is approve the extension of the agreement with Forster Woods Adult Day Center for 1 year and authorize city manager to sign. 3.5 is approve a conditional Class 3 rental license for an occupancy of up to 2 unrelated persons or a family at 922 Crowley Avenue. The owner of record is Nicole Cowley.
Yeah.
Thank you. Nicole Schreiner, East Lansing. 3.6 is approve a letter of support for Haven House's application for the Ingham County Housing and Homeless Millage Supportive Service Grants. 3.7 is approve a contract in the amount of $21,800 with Wade Trim Associates, Inc. for assistance in developing the City of East Lansing 2026 through 2030 Community Development Block Grant Consolidated Plan, and authorize the city manager to sign. Furthermore, approve a project contingency of $2,180. 3.8 is approve a contract with Speed Wrench, Inc. for the DPW recycling drop-off compactor conversion project in the amount of $67,250 and authorize a 15% contingency for potential change orders, establishing a total project spending limit not to exceed $77,338, and authorize the city manager to sign the contract and any change orders within the approved contingency. 3.9 is approve a contract with Fishbeck in the amount of $28,993 for engineering services for the parking facilities condition assessment with a project contingency of $5,799 and authorize city manager to sign. 310 is approve a contract with Trane U.S. Inc. for the purchase and installation of a heating and cooling unit at the DPW facility in the vehicle service area in an amount of $32,627.10, which includes a 10% contingency, and authorize city manager to sign. 3.11 is approve policy resolution 2025-4 to dissolve the City of East Lansing Building Authority. 312 is approve a contract with Delta Dental for dental insurance and authorize city manager to sign. 313 is approve a resolution for military leave contributions to MERS. 314 is approve a resolution to opt out of Public Act 152. 315, schedule a public hearing for Tuesday, July 15th, 2025 to receive comments on Ordinance 1550, a proposed amendment to Section 50-147 to allow increased fence height in the C Community Facilities Zone districts.
You need a few minutes to catch your breath now?
Yeah, exactly.
Do we have a motion?
I'll move approval of the consent agenda.
Moved by Meadows. Do we have a second? Second by Singh. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed, motion passes unanimously. We now move to Section 4. We have two public hearings tonight. The first one is item 4.1, a public hearing to receive comments on proposed Ordinance 1546, an amendment to Section 50-94 of the zoning ordinance, which would change the process for developers seeking to transfer credits in association with the diverse housing requirement for certain developments in downtown East Lansing. Staff, please.
Good evening, Alicia Wright in Planning Department. On behalf of Landon Bartley, our principal planner. Section 50-94B4 of the City of East Lansing zoning ordinance currently includes a diverse housing requirement for multifamily developments proposed in the downtown of East Lansing within the DDA area boundaries and west of Collingwood Drive. At least 25% of units in a proposed multifamily residential project must be owner-occupied, restricted to residents aged 55 or older, affordable for low to moderate income tenants, or another occupancy type which would add diversity of housing to the area. This section allows for transfer of credits between projects under certain circumstances. Councilmember Meadows requested that this ordinance be created to prohibit such a transfer, and I would defer to Councilmember Meadows to answer any questions about the proposed ordinance.
Do you want me to comment on it?
Sure, go ahead.
Sure. When we began to see some proposals last year of projects, particularly a workforce housing project in the Bailey lot, one of the objectives of the developer was then to transfer ownership of the credits for each of the units that were in there. In other words, a sales project. What this ordinance does is it simply says that if you're going to get tax increment financing or payment in lieu of taxes or some other city support with regard to this project, you can't sell those. But an ordinary developer who may develop some low to moderate income housing in conjunction with a project in the downtown would in fact still be able to transfer those credits to someone in the future. So it's a limitation, but it's designed to address what we began to see a few years ago, which is consistently developers wanting city support of some kind, financial support of the taxpayers, in order to proceed with their project. And in those cases, they would not be able to sell off the low to moderate income housing portion, the 25%, which our ordinance requires.
Okay, any question from council for staff or Mr. Meadows? Okay, seeing none, I will declare open the public hearing to receive comments on proposed ordinance 1546, an amendment to section 50-94 of the zoning ordinance, which would change the process for developers seeking to transfer credits in association with a diverse housing requirement for certain developments in downtown East Lansing. Anybody wish to address the city council on this public hearing? Seeing none, I will stop the public hearing, and we now go back to council. What is your pleasure other than having this on the next regular business agenda? Is there anything else we want to do tonight? Okay. Moving right along to item 4.2, a public hearing to receive comments on a request from Matt Levitt on behalf of Meyer Inc. for approval of a special use permit located at 100 Westlake Lansing Road. The applicant request is to construct a 5.751 square foot gas station with 6 gas pump islands and 12 pumps. The property is zoned B2 Retail Sales Business District. Staff, please.
Planning Commission originally saw the proposal before you and voted on April 9th with a 3-3 failed motion to recommend approval, and the City Council had scheduled their public hearing for May 27th when staff learned of a noticing issue, so had to defer and reschedule and renotice. The Planning Commission did hold their public hearing last night and voted 1-5 to deny recommendation of approval. The proposal for Meyer is a 5,751 square foot building on 1.5 acres. The proposed development includes 6 islands and 12 pumps. There are 23 parking spaces, including 2 ADA and 2 EV charging stations. The application includes relocating the Cata stop on Westlake Lansing further west, which will put it on the west side of the proposed driveway in front of the other property. There are 2 underground detention systems proposed for water runoff and retention. The proposal includes removal of all trees and shrubs on the parcel, but they have indicated that lot 14 to the north, that Meyer has the right to utilize that parcel to maintain some trees. Due to the public sidewalk right-of-way dedication to the city, the entire project has been shifted 5 feet to the north into lot 14 to accommodate the minimum tree planting requirements along Westlake Lansing Road. The land is owned by Gillespie, and Meyer will lease long-term. This also applies to lot 14, which was not understood to be part of the original project until it was clarified last night, and the applicants are here to further delineate that. The project also includes an alternating fence tree buffer on the west boundary shared by the dental office. The design of the structure is a 4-corner with corner towers. Spandrel glass has been added on the east and west facades. The fuel island poles have been wrapped with brick. And when council is ready for a vote, a sample motion is provided for consideration, but it's only a sample, which should be tailored to city council's determined conditions, and I can answer questions, and the applicant is here.
Okay, questions for staff? Any? Okay, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Questions, if I
Sure.
can. This is in the comprehensive plan, the future land use map. This is identified as C1 commercial, correct?
Yes, yes.
Okay, and that designation does not include gas stations, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Could you address, summarizing perhaps if it's appropriate, what the Planning Commission's concerns were?
Traffic and the fact that it didn't match the comprehensive plan.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, any other questions for staff? Okay, yes, go ahead, please.
Can you remind me the traffic study that was included?
The traffic study that was included was prepared by the applicant, and as with many, it doesn't imply that there will be a substantial increase in traffic.
And that was the concern by the Planning Commission?
Yes.
I actually have a follow-up question on
Sure,
that topic.
Go ahead, please.
So I'm looking for the traffic study in tonight's packet. It is in there?
I'm not sure. should have been in there. No, I'll have to forward that to you.
So maybe you can summarize from your memory of the traffic study. So one of the questions I had was, I'm not surprised that the level of service at the intersection doesn't change, but with several new ingress-egress curb cuts, I would think the conflict points would be a substantial issue, and the potential for crashes going up would be an issue. Could you summarize perhaps what you remember from the traffic study about those questions?
The study generally indicated that people are processing or stopping by not as a destination, but on their way somewhere else to get gas. And it indicated that backups at the entrance and exits could be during prime business hours up to 30 to 35 minutes. I don't recall the crash data, but their engineer is here that could address that information.
So just by way of context, when we considered and then ultimately decided on the Trowbridge project about a year and a half ago, the whole rationale for this Michigan left that MDOT had built into that design was that it reduced the number of conflict points, quote unquote conflict points, where a conflict point was basically anything from a lane change to crossing a lane. And a conflict point is any situation that could result in a crash. And in this situation, you're adding a bunch of curb cuts and a whole bunch of traffic into and out of this space. So even if the total traffic volume does not increase, the opportunities for getting into trouble with a car merging ahead of another car are going to go way up. And so I was actually a little surprised not to read more about that in the staff report, either addressing it one way or the other. It seems to me that this is a congested intersection with, I think, if I remember having looked at the traffic study from a previous packet, there's a lot of accidents here already. And I think this promises to increase them. That's the reason that I was asking that particular question. It's less the level of service at the intersection and traffic backing up. It's the number of conflict points is going to go up, and that's my basic concern.
Unfortunately, I'm not an engineer. I'd be happy to ask our engineering department if they have any additional questions. The application was routed to all of the departments.
All right, thank you.
I've got a couple of questions.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, just pretty basic, really. As I look at the plan, there's one curb cut and in and out on, or maybe it's just an out, on Lake Lansing Road at the very west of the property.
Yes.
Correct? And did the staff have any criticism of that particular area of ingress and egress?
No, the concerns were raised about the relocation of the CATA stop.
Okay, and that would make that CATA stop, I'm looking at this map again, or the plan, there's two curb cuts, one at the north end that apparently would go right to the convenience store portion of this, and then one right to the gas islands. Where would the relocation go to in relation to that northern curb cut for this project?
It's not on Abbott Road. That one, CATA declined to allow a change. The West Lake Lansing Road stop is being moved west of their driveway, and it'll be in front of the dental office in the right-of-way.
Okay, so it just moves down
Correct.
Lake Lansing Road slightly, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. And in terms of I didn't quite understand what you were talking about in terms of the lot that's at the north end of this property. That was a former house that has been torn down. It has a curb cut. Is that curb cut being eliminated?
Not to my knowledge. All that they have expressed is that they'll remove the existing pavement so they don't create a nonconformity with relocating the lot line 5 feet north.
Okay, and how much of that lot has this had to take now because of the relocation?
I'm sorry, could you say that again?
Yeah, I thought you indicated that the lot line on this project had moved north a certain amount into this other lot. And how far into that lot did it go?
5 feet. But
Okay.
they also have, as I learned, full use of lease of that property as well.
Okay, and that
But it wasn't.
property, would it still be consistent with existing zoning even by losing the 5 feet? In other words, could it be developed as a lot?
In the existing 1.5, it could be developed, but they would have to reduce sizes of their proposal.
Okay, got it. That's it. That's all I have.
Dr. Altman?
Could you say a little bit more about the contractual or other relationship that gives them access to that lot?
I'm sorry, again?
Could you say a little bit more about the contractual or other relationship that gives them access, full use of that lot?
The Gillespie Group has leased the entire 4 parcels. So the original project, as I understood it, was for the 1.5 for lots 11, 12, and 13. 14 is the vacant parcel that had the house on it. Last night, I understood that they have leased that ground as well. It's not originally part of the full development, but they have use for the treescape and whatever other elements that may need to be developed. But the proposal has been limited to the physical development of the 1.5 acres for lots 11, 12, and 13. But they lease all of it, and the applicant could probably further explain how that lease arrangement is sorted.
Great, thank you.
So can I follow that up on that?
Please do.
It just occurred to me, if we have 4 lots there, absent the development of this project, we could have 4 curb cuts in there. If each of those lots were developed, is that correct?
It would depend on the site distance clearance allowances for curb cuts. There's a certain distance that has to be between each driveway.
Okay. That's it for me.
Any other questions for staff? Okay, then I declare open a public hearing to receive comments on a request from Matt Levitt on behalf of Meyer Inc. for approval of a special use permit located at 100 Westlake Lansing Road. The applicant's request is to construct a 5,751 square foot gas station with 6 gas pump islands and 12 pumps. The property is zoned B2 Retail Sales Business District. Mr. Levitt. I'm pretty sure you're not Mr. Levitt, but are
Do you mind if I open up for part
No,
of it?
I don't mind.
Okay. Pat Gillespie, 6240 Island Lake Road, East Lansing. Thank you for taking the time to hear about this project tonight. I'm going to be very brief. We bought the land about 18 months ago. It's one of the last commercial parcels on a corner in Lake Lansing Road. It's zoned for a gas station. Once we bought it and put a sign up, we found out very quickly that many gas stations would like to be here. We have over 4 to 6 gas stations that have offered to do some type of letter of intent on the property. So it was pretty easy for us to choose to work with Meyer. Meyer is a great community partner, evidenced by what they've done in this community over the last 25 years, and they're a Michigan-based company. So we naturally wanted to partner with them and bring them into this project. So we have a relationship with them. They've worked very hard over the last, I think it's been 6-7 months now. I think we're on version 8 of the elevation, version 4 or 5 of the site plan, added landscaping. Just watching them work very diligently to listen to the planning staff and listening to the city council to make the changes was really nice to have a partner like that has made all of the modifications. I think you'll see some of the changes today. It's come a long way in the last little bit. Mr. Meadows, to answer your question, that back lot, the lot 14, is meant to be a buffer, a landscape buffer. We're going to leave those trees and leave the vegetation. And the curb cut that's currently there, we plan on removing that. So we'll have one less curb cut than there currently is, and that will be left as a buffer. I think that was your question as well.
I do have a question for you.
Yes, sir.
Are you done?
The only other thing is we are going to own the land and lease the land to them. And if Meyer, so our office is 4 miles from there. If there's a problem, we're here to help take care of it. I don't ever anticipate a problem. But if Meyer were to leave, they would, their responsibility is to clear the site of all tanks, buildings, and everything else, so it would go back to its natural state.
Okay, so what I want to clarify, because we were talking about lease versus own, this, I think it's lot 4, is that what you referred?
14.
14. You actually own that.
We own all the site, and we are leasing all of the site to Meyer. Meyer will lease
Okay,
a lot,
let me back
including
off.
lot 14.
Just back up, Minister Gillespie. I can't move as fast as you are. I'm an elderly gentleman, and I'm a poor country lawyer, and it takes me a little while to understand this. So let me just back up. So this entire vacant parcel, which is really 4 parcels, correct?
Correct.
You bought, your company bought.
Correct.
Okay. And now, as part of this proposal, you are proposing that this be leased to Myers. And what you've just said to Mr. Meadows is this lot number 14 that he had questions about, you intend to retain as a buffer, including, I assume, what you're talking about is vegetation of some kind. Is that all correct?
Correct.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions for Mr. Gillespie? Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Appreciate it.
thank you. Matt Levitt.
I sent Pat up first because he's more
It's fine,
attractive,
it's fine.
better looking guy.
Probably better that you got Gillespie up and out.
Just get him out of the way.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, that's
So-
fair.
Good evening. My name is Matt Levitt. I am the real estate manager for Meyer. Thank you for having us tonight. I appreciate the opportunity to present this project both to the city and to city council, as well as your feedback from the council, and including the feedback that we have already received over the past couple of months as we have gone through this process. Tonight, I am here to introduce what amounts to a new generation of Meyer gas stations. It is the Meyer Express, and it is a larger store that provides more than your typical fuel station. Meyer Express in this proposal is, as Mayor Brookover said, a 5,751 square foot fuel station that will provide opportunities for families, students, and people on the go with additional options to make their lives a little bit easier. For this site, Meyer Express will offer expanded food programs, a clean, bright place to fuel their car, to go shopping, and to get life's essentials when they don't have time to visit one of our larger stores or another grocery store that's a little bit further away. Meyer Express is going to offer an expanded food program, a selection of quick trip items that would normally only be found at your local supercenter. For food, the list includes fresh from Meyer salads. I know Mayor Brookover, you mentioned that you would love to have that option. Those are going to be there. Bakery items, take and bake pizzas, burritos, burrito bowls, quesadillas, soft drinks, ready-to-eat pizza, chicken sandwiches. The list goes on and on. If you are on the go and you are in need of something, the new Meyer Express is going to provide many options for you to fulfill that need. There will also be opportunities to fill quick trip needs that you normally wouldn't see in a fuel station. Health and beauty products, grocery, dairy, other consumable products that you need on a daily basis that maybe don't require a full shop. You can now go to the Meyer Express and you can fulfill those needs. Items that we're planning to have include toothbrushes, toothpaste, hair products, bread, milk, eggs. You can grab those items. You can go about your day without having to go through a full shop or going to a larger store. This is convenience and quality that you have come to expect from Meyer in a smaller format that is just as convenient as every other option that we have, even a little bit more so with the fueling option as well. In discussions with city council members, we heard that EV chargers are important. We did not originally plan to include those in the site, but with that feedback coming from city council, we knew that we needed to include that, and I'm happy to say that we have now included 2 level 2 chargers that will be installed on the site upon the construction of this project. In addition to that inclusion, we received feedback from council and city staff on the aesthetic of the building, what the building is going to look like, what the materials are. We exchanged, I believe we can provide some visibility to the new plans that were shown earlier on the screen. We exchanged the red-brown brick accents with architectural aluminum siding panels that have the appearance of wood, which will help integrate this building better into the natural surroundings and provide a softer appearance. We wrapped the canopy supports in brick for the fueling canopy as a specific request, which will integrate them better with the express building that sits behind it. We increased the size of the spandrel glass windows facing Abbott Road so that it softens the building's appearance and provides more of a natural look similar to the buildings that are surrounding this project. We also added a fence barrier to the west boundary line to provide both site definition for our neighbors and to catch garbage or other refuse that may appear on the site so that we can go ahead and clean those up at a minimum on a daily basis and make sure that the site remains clean, friendly for our customers, and doesn't add any sort of trash to the neighboring properties as well. On top of all those items, we have landscaped virtually everywhere on this site that we are able to landscape. We know that there are trees and other natural landscape that are being removed to make way for this project, but we are adding back to, where we can, we are adding back to that so that we have trees and bushes and other natural features that will soften the landscape and, again, make it a more welcoming location. On the technical side of things, I want to address a couple of the items that have been brought up so far. The current zoning of the property, as Pat mentioned, it is currently zoned for a fuel station as long as we receive a special use permit from City Council. So yes, there is a land plan, a future land plan that does not include fuel stations. However, the current zoning, to be clear, does allow for fuel stations, and that's why we've made the application. This is zoning that does include the ability to sell fuel and to permit a gas station with City Council approval. To address the 5 feet shift to the north, that came as a result of discussions with the city engineer. There was a requirement, or a request, I should say, to include a sidewalk on Lake Lansing Road that is not currently there. It will allow pedestrians to continue on the route. It's, I guess, part of the city's plan to include sidewalks whenever new development is taking place. We are happy to provide those things. The reason for the 5-foot shift is because of setback requirements. I'm not going to go into it, but in the end, we decided that the best course of action along with the city engineer was to go ahead and shift the site and provide a straight sidewalk to Abbott Road that will allow pedestrians to traverse the site east and west. There was some mention of wetlands. Just to be upfront, there is 0.04 acres of non-regulated wetlands. Meyer did submit a wetland study that was reviewed and approved by the city engineer or the wetlands consultant for the city. It is not considered to be anything that we need to manage through. We will adequately address the wetlands that are on the site. They are not connected, they are not navigable, so thus they are not, they're non-regulated and can be part of our development as long as it's appropriately managed. Stormwater management, I know that has been, and these are some of the issues that have come up at Planning Commission, so I want to make sure that we're addressing those right out of the gate. Stormwater management, I know that there is some concern about flooding that has taken place surrounding, in neighboring areas to this site. I want to be clear, because we are developing the site, we are going to actually improve the stormwater management. Instead of sheet flow runoff that goes to the locations that add to the water that ends up causing those floods, we are going to collect the water on our site and put it into the stormwater system and move it north where it should be going, where currently it runs west and south from the site in a sheet flow. This is going to improve that scenario. So the natural state of things is actually adding to the problem. We're going to fix that for this site. And the traffic study, finally. I know that there's been some comments on the traffic study. We submitted a traffic study at the request of the city. The city engineers and consultants reviewed that traffic study and agreed with the findings. So yes, there will be traffic that has to slow down to enter the site. But in conjunction with the city, when the site was designed, we made adjustments that will help to alleviate the issues that are being asked about. On Lake Lansing, the single curb cut that will be present on the site originally was proposed as full access. In conjunction with the city engineer and reviewing the site plan and with staff, we have reduced that to a right-in, right-out configuration. So there will not be left turns either leaving the site or entering the site. They will only be Lake Lansing traffic heading west can enter, and then people who are leaving are able to leave, make a right turn, and continue going west on Lake Lansing. The similar scenario is presented for the southern curb cut on Abbott Road. That is also going to be right in, right out. There should not be vehicles crossing lanes to turn left in or crossing lanes to turn left out. We agree. That is too close to the intersection of Lake Lansing and Abbott to be a safe maneuver. And so we have agreed to make those limited traffic movements to allow for increased safety and better circulation around both our site and the navigable streets that surround the site. To the north, it is a full access movement, but that is because it is further away from the intersection and is by general traffic standards and the engineers that have designed the site, that is considered to be a safe movement. So we have included that as a full access turning movement, both left in, left out, right in, right out. We expect people to make the choices that are going to be safer for them and their families. And if we felt like that wasn't going to be a safe option, we wouldn't propose it. Meyer is a community-based business. We serve families in this area. We don't want to do anything that is going to be unsafe. If we create an unsafe scenario for people trying to get to our site, they're not going to come to our site. We understand that. We have 50-plus years of development experience and understand that when people are concerned about safety, they tend to make other options. So we are taking the steps that are necessary to create a safe scenario for people to come and visit our business and to get the things that they need. I'm happy to answer any other questions. If there are any from council, or I can come up and respond when other comments are made later, I'm happy to do whatever it is that you would like me to do this evening.
Okay, any questions for applicant? Yes, sir.
This may be for the applicant or maybe for our staff. Do we have a tree inventory of those lots now, and do we have a sense of the proportion of trees that will be removed compared to the proportion of trees that you're going to add? Or the number of trees that are going to be removed versus the number of trees you're going to add?
Staff?
The site will be cleared for lots 11, 12, and 13. Our environmental engineer has indicated that there aren't necessarily significant trees on this parcel. I'm not familiar with lot 14 because I was unaware of it until last night, being part of the development.
So the answer is we don't have a tree inventory.
Correct.
Okay.
Other questions for applicant at this point?
I believe we do have a tree inventory. I'm not necessarily familiar with it. Our engineer certainly would have more information on that.
Come on up and answer the question, will you, please, sir?
Go ahead.
My name is Jim Rosema, civil engineer with Collier's Engineering and Design. To the question, there is a tree survey, an inventory on the topographic survey, which would be the second sheet of the plan set. There are 100 trees of 4-inch larger diameter on and within the development site. As Alicia mentioned, the city staff have been out there and deemed them not worthy of, whatever. They wouldn't survive on their own, whatever. They're not quality trees. They're overgrown. On the north property on lot 14, I don't remember the number right off my top of my head, but I think there's somewhere in the area of 20 sizable salvageable trees that will remain along with the undergrowth between them around the perimeter of lot 14.
That will remain?
That will remain.
Okay. Other questions for applicant?
Can I just follow up? How many
Sure.
trees are you putting in as part of the landscape?
Can I come back to you? I'll look at the...
Yeah, thank you.
Okay. Yes, ma'am.
I just want to confirm that in your lease agreement that whatever the future may hold, you would be removing the gas tanks underneath the ground, including...
Yes. Our requirement per the lease is to return the lot, if we were ever to cease operations, to its previous state. Obviously, we can't replace trees, but it would be, everything would be removed from the ground, reseeded, graded, and it would be effectively a green space again.
You could plant new trees, but...
We very well could and would. It would probably look a little strange with just a flat green space, so there would be elements included.
And just one on the tree piece, and I can't remember if this was on the public record conversation I had with Cliff on city staff, but the phrase he used was they were not native species of trees. They were mainly invasive or not native. So that's what I recall. I just don't know if that was on record. Is that your recollection, or?
Yeah, I believe in his report, he indicated that there are a lot of non-native and invasive species on lots 11, 12, and 13. I'm just not familiar with lot 14.
Yeah. Okay.
Other questions for applicant? Mr. Meadows?
A follow-up to the Mayor Pro Tem's question. We don't have a copy of that lease, right?
No, that's not a public record.
All right, I think it would be useful because I think it would answer some of our questions for one thing, but I want to ask you specifically whether the lease also provides the responsibility for remediation in case there is an environmental accident on that site to be that of Meyer's responsibility?
Yes, Meyer would be responsible for any remediation necessary. Obviously, we would work in conjunction with Eagle if there was a release at the fuel station, but we would certainly take care of all legal and frankly, community-based responsibilities that we would have.
Okay.
Mr. Roseman, did you have an additional answer then, or not yet quite?
I believe I count, between shrubs and trees, I guess the total count is 58. My phone is a little too small to decipher everything, so.
And I did find the inventory, thank you. It's exactly where you said it was.
Okay. Any other questions for applicants? Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Jessica Maxon?
Good evening. Jessica Maxon from Maxon Dental. Approving a gas station across from another gas station at an intersection that already has a higher than average crash rate is irresponsible planning. It would be an endangerment to the community and all who travel through this intersection each day. The traffic impact study on page 166 provides the facts and details stating that this intersection has a crash frequency of 16 per year, which is higher than average. 21 crashes per year is considered critical. Voting yes this evening to a high-volume business is anything but thoughtful planning for the city. Voting yes this evening tells the community that safety is not a priority for you, and the city should be held responsible for increased accidents at the intersection. I said it before, and I'll say it again. Anything but low-profile suburban-style office and retail is asking too much of this space. And then I'd like to address just a few other things that were brought up, because I have read.
Sure, go ahead.
I have read through the agenda packet, the traffic impact study, the wetland report, probably a dozen times. And the wetland study was done outside of the growing season. And it states clearly in there that can change the size when it's honored during its growing season. And I do believe there are some native species on the lots as well. So I just wanted to make sure that that was brought up.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Kirsten Keebler?
Hello.
Hi.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak. I'm Kirsten Keebler. I did submit a letter earlier. I don't exactly know how that process works, if you get to read it or I brought it with me.
I read it.
Thank you. So I want to talk a little bit about what it's like, and my husband also, David Keebler. We have lived at 6064 for 16 years. So a little bit about what it's like to live.
6464 Abbott, correct?
6064,
Yeah,
yep.
thank you.
There's just a few little houses tucked back, but what you might not know is we have an acre on the other side. So we bought the home when we had a 14-year-old, and we didn't have too many worries back then, 16 years ago. We sat out in our backyard. We enjoyed the deer until they became rampant. And sort of a little bit of sounds here and there. The traffic now, sounds are overwhelming. We now have a 13-and-a-half-year-old child who, how cool would it be if he could go up to the soccer complex for practice? How cool would it be if he could ride up to Hannah or his buddy's house? He can't do any of those things because of the increase of traffic in the time that we've lived here. When I hear fun packaged foods and beauty items, I hear more trash for my husband to pick up in our yard. This is a constant process. Taki wrappers and bottles. Already living there has become such an issue, despite the fact that we have such a beautiful place. And in the last year, our neighbor was killed just walking off the trail to her home, and our direct neighbor. So I just wanted to talk a little bit about what it's like to live in those 4 homes, because there's not a lot of us that live there. It's a really cool place to live. It's a really special, unique place to live. But with the addition of this kind of a structure, it's not thoughtful for families. I know there aren't many of us, But I wanted to give a little bit of insight into what it's like to live there, especially with a teenager who's going to be pulling out onto Abbott Road in a few years with a car. I needed those concerns to be heard, so thank you.
Thank you very much. Greg Maxon?
Greg Maxon, dentist and owner of Maxon Dental, the property immediately to the west of the proposed Meyer gas station. I am certainly a supporter of Meyer. I've been a lifelong customer. Meyer's been good to my family, and I will continue to be a supporter of Meyer. I'm not against development on this lot. What I am opposed to is a high-profile, high-volume development on this lot. For reasons we've already heard, reasons you've read about already. I believe it's going to create more congestion at this intersection, which is already busy. I also think it's going to create delays, and it's going to make it harder for my patients, my staff, people that live and work in the area to get in and out of day-to-day, their places to be. In addition, one of the things I'm aware of is that last year the City Council approved the development 3 doors down for a single-story multi-tenant retail building with 42-space parking lot. And that's 3 doors down. This potential at this intersection, or very near to it, is that there's going to be a significant uptick in activity. Activity that's going to recirculate traffic right on the intersection, right on the corner. And I'm concerned about safety. I'm concerned about delays. I'm concerned about just that congestion in general and how it's going to make things a bit harder. I hope that you consider those things. I think thoughtful planning for this site is to be low profile, suburban style, something that is within the master plan. So,
thank you.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah. Richard Ballander?
Good evening. Richard Ballander, and I live at 6054 Harkson Drive. 2 weeks ago, I attended the City Council meeting, and Mayor Brookhover had mentioned that at that time they just noticed that residents of Meridian Township had not received notice of the gas station. We didn't receive any notice this time either. And you said that the meeting would be postponed for 2 weeks so that notices could be sent out. Nobody on our street received a notice. We're the first street east of Abbott, and nothing. So somebody's falling down on the job and didn't send it out. A couple of other random thoughts that I have on this. I have a dog, and I walk him up Abbott. We usually walk up to Azadika Park and around through the trail system, come back down through Abbott, and then walk back to our house. Trying to cross the street at the corner of Abbott and Lake Lansing Road is a royal pain in the butt sometimes. I end up waiting at the traffic light sometimes 8-10 minutes before the traffic's cleared enough I can get out of there. Currently, we have a speedway station across the street. They're building the new gas station on Saginaw and Abbott. A mile to the east is the Marathon Station, and then 3 miles to the west is the Sam's Club, where I always go because it's 25 to 40 cents cheaper there than anywhere else.
You don't go to Costco?
Once in a while, if I'm going that way, I'll go to Costco, yeah. But Sam's is kind of good. The other question I have, Myers has been there for 40 years. Why all of a sudden have they decided to put a gas station 0.9 miles and this convenience store 0.9 miles from the main store? Why wasn't a gas station put at that Meyer instead of selling off all their front lots to banks and everything else over the last 40-year period? Let's see what else is on here. Contrary to what the gentleman from Myers said, they're going to have a right turn only. We all know people are people. And if I want to go to Okemos out of that gas station, I'm going to look and I'm going to watch and I'm going to make a quick left turn out of that gas station. The same thing happens at the Speedway across the street. There are a lot of people that come out the Lake Lansing exit and want to turn left so they can go west. And sometimes I see them sitting there for 3 or 4 traffic lights, waiting to go, and nobody lets them cross because there is a left turn lane off of Lake Lansing onto northbound Abbott. So, like I say, people are people. They're going to turn left out of there no matter what, even though it says right turn only. Just something for your consideration. So with that, that's all I've got to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, anybody else want to address us with regard to this public hearing at this point in time? Seeing none, I will close the public hearing. We're back to the council. Are there questions or issues that council wants to direct to staff?
I would just like to ask that we get the traffic study linked to the agenda packet if we vote on this at the next meeting.
Sure, yeah. No, sir, we're done. We're done. Did you want to speak during the public? Okay, well, I'll reopen the public hearing, ma'am, for you. Come on up. Please give us, I don't have a card from you, so would you give us your name and your address, please?
Jean Lyle Leopard, 6108 Harkson Drive, 1,056 feet from the proposed site. And we already see a lot of increase of traffic on Harkson when anything is happening on Abbott or Lake Lansing. I just wanted to confirm that I did not receive anything. I've gone through all my mail. We have received no notice. And I was wondering about the traffic survey. Is that since the traffic was changed and the bike lanes went in?
Okay.
So that was
Would
my...
you give us your address again, please?
6108 Harkson.
Okay, thank you. We'll
Thank
check
you.
on the notice. Okay, seeing nobody else, I will close the public hearing. We're now back to council. Dr. Altman has requested that we have a link to the traffic study for our next session on this. Anything else for staff? Yes, sir, Mr. Meadows.
Just actually for staff, if you could just inform the public the requirements for notice that are given. If you're over 1,000 feet from this site, they wouldn't necessarily get the notice. Is that correct?
Notice requirement is within 300 feet.
Okay. And I think that probably answers, somebody else had that comment as well, so.
Okay, any other questions for staff? Thank you. Thanks, staff. Thanks for your time tonight. We move ahead with the business agenda. Item 5.1, consideration of a special use request from 213 Ann Street, owner St. Ann LLC, for approval to modify the interior spaces at 213 Ann Street for expansion of the Fieldhouse Sports Bar into adjacent Suite B with alcohol service and conversion of vacant Suite C to be used as a pizza shop without alcohol service in the existing building. The property is zoned B3 City Center Commercial District. Staff, please.
As stated, this is a special use request to expand alcohol service for the existing field house into the Blue Owl space, Suite B, and then the addition of a pizza and sub sandwich shop without alcohol into Suite C. December 11th, 2024, Planning Commission made a recommendation of approval with conditions to City Council. City Council held their public hearing on February 4th. The following meeting, the applicant had requested postponement due to some design changes. Multiple versions had been submitted to staff, and at the March 2025 City Council meeting, it was determined that the version before council was different enough to be referred back to the Planning Commission and the DDA for reconsideration. The applicant did return their proposal to what was nearly exactly what had been submitted to start with. They did go to the Planning Commission and the DDA, both of which have made recommendations for approval. Planning Commission had recommendation with conditions. The project includes their request to maintain the 330 occupancy that they have. It's a redistribution of the occupancy, which is a slightly different number than what was in the proposal from February 4th, whereby Suite B, I believe, had 1 or 2 additional which was reduced out of Suite A, and Suite C had one additional, again, reduced out of Suite B, but the total occupancy proposed is 330. There is a breakdown of the delineation of the seats from what council saw on February 4th compared to tonight's version included, still marking the same total of occupancy requested of 330. And as stated, this is essentially what you saw, or what the Planning Commission saw originally, and quite similar to what council saw on February 4th. There just had been many iterations in between, which is why it was referred back to Planning Commission and DDA.
Questions for staff? So the current occupancy is what?
330.
Currently?
It is on record at 330 for the whole property. That includes upstairs, Suite A, first floor, second floor.
But for the field house, there's a lower occupancy.
The total for the space hasn't
site.
changed
Yeah,
from.
I asked the wrong question.
Okay.
So the field house current occupancy, the field house space, let's call it that, is 236, is that correct, according to your report?
I didn't do the math, sorry.
And they're asking for an expansion. I'm sorry, because it's been a while since we first looked at this, so I have to redo the math here.
Okay.
And so what are they asking for?
So it's a redistribution of the occupancy.
Okay, so they're redistributing,
Yeah, I just didn't do the math. So the 330 was approved originally, and that's what's been maintained from 2010 and 2014. There was an administrative approval in 2018 for Suites A and B, but the occupancy total of 330 never changed. Their proposal before you this evening still maintains that 330. It's just distributed now between Suite A, first and second floor, Suite B, which will have 96 individuals, Suite C, which will have 30, and there's 8 people floating in the kitchen. I can do the math quick.
I don't feel like I'm asking the right question, gentlemen, lady. I mean,
So there's 194 attributed to Suite A,
currently,
first and second,
currently?
in the proposal. The original proposal, there was no change to the field house listed on their application packet. So when they came before you on February 4th, all they provided was the expansion elements into Suites B and C, which was for 102 for the number of seats, 8 for staff, for a total of 110. This proposal that's before you still maintains similar numbers, only that they've added the full original field house so you can see the actual layout of the space as a whole.
Do you have a page number in the report that gives us the diagram?
Page 4 of 14 in the staff report is where the chart is listed.
Yeah, I see the chart. I'm looking for like a schematic. Is there a schematic that shows us these different spaces?
Yep, it is page,
Thank you, Mark.
didn't print the page number, 15? 17. Thank you.
Okay, I'm sorry. I don't mean to monopolize the questions via my stupidity. Other questions from staff, or for staff from council? Any other questions? Okay. What's the pleasure of the council? Okay, for the sake of moving this matter along and discussion and argument, I move that we approve the request for alterations and grant the special use permit. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Second from Ebersol Singh. Discussion.
I'll start.
Sure, go ahead, please.
I'm going to oppose this on grounds that we have 4,500 occupancy in bars in our downtown already. And it's just been creeping up over the years, and we don't need any more. And we don't need to continue what is an undue concentration of similar uses in the neighborhood, such that liquor establishments and trade become a dominant influence or feature of the district or neighborhood. I'm also concerned about neighbors across the street to the south in Newman Lofts. I would like that development to succeed, and I think noise from bars on the south side of Abbott is a significant issue for the residents there. So I believe that that their quality of life is affected negatively by this, and that will get worse as a function of this expansion. So I'll be opposing this.
Okay, and Mr. Jones, it would not be typical for you to address at this stage, but I want to give you the opportunity to address this before we move any further out of sense of fairness. Is there anything you wanted to add or tell us?
Thank you. I think I may be able to clarify a couple questions that you may have had. Yeah. So in 2012, this was approved with a special use permit for 330 people in the entire commercial space of this building. And then in 2018, that commercial space was split to turn into the field house for part of it and turn into Blue Owl Coffee for the other part. What we're asking for tonight is to revert back to the entire first floor of the building, or the entire commercial space of the building, to be the field house with a section of that taken out for a pizza location. The pizza location has 30 people in it. The field house would have 300 people in it. The pizza location would not have alcohol. The field house will remain a bar restaurant like it is today.
Okay. So the practical effect of this would be the field house would increase its capacity over what was previously the situation.
Increase its capacity to what was there
I understand
prior,
that, sir.
yes.
Yeah, so you're just increasing the subset of the entire universe from what it was before.
Correct.
Okay, thank you. All right, thank you. Okay, other comments regarding the motion? I know I did that a little bit out of order, but I wanted to make sure the applicant had a chance to speak to us tonight.
Well, if I may, I'll just indicate that I'm echoing Councilmember Altman's comments with regard to this. I think I indicated much earlier when we first started to talk about this, my concern about having, I guess, a large number of unseated individuals within this area. And I've looked at the seating chart that has been provided to us, and it doesn't really alleviate many of my concerns with regard to how this would actually operate. It's not that I feel that every restaurant ought to have a seat for every patron, because many restaurants have people standing at the bar waiting to be served, or things like that, or having carryout. But to me, this is a very big concern at this particular time in the downtown, and particularly in that location where we've had some issues in the past. And in fact, I think back as to the complaints that we received even from the senior housing, I realize seniors, but the senior housing in that downtown area generally directed towards the field house late at night when the windows are open and the music is still playing there. We also don't seem to have, and maybe I'm misreading this, a requirement that the outdoor seating reduce the indoor seating at some point. We do that with other restaurants and bars in the downtown. Can you tell me whether it does that?
I believe it is in the conditions, and it's illustrated in their plan set showing the number that would be outside as the number of seats that are provided.
Yeah, I think there's 26 seats outside. That reduces the interior
Right.
thing. Well, I think that's a good thing. But that doesn't alleviate some of the issues that I have with regard to it. So at this point in time, I'll be voting no.
I'm also going to vote against this for the following reasons. First of all, I don't think it satisfies the requirements of the special use permit at this point in time, given the fact that there's an effect request for a change in the special use permit. And the reasons I am voting against it, and I respect the owner and applicant's efforts to go ahead with this, but I don't think that the proposed use, I think the proposed use shall adversely affect the use and enjoyment of adjacent properties by generating excessive noise, vibration, light, glare, odors, or any other form of pollution or nuisances. The next reason I'm voting against this is that streets and access facilities serving the site are not able to safely accommodate the expected traffic generated by the proposed use. The use shall not cause excessive traffic congestion or delays, obstruct access to adjacent properties, or imperil the safety of motorists, pedestrians, or bicycles. And the next one under the special use permit analysis is, and this is another reason why I'm voting against this, I believe that the proposed use shall materially diminish the economic value of adjacent properties or the city as a whole. And frankly, I think our comments of other council members, as well as the variety of complaints we've gotten since I've been on the city council relative to downtown liquor establishments, support that particular item as well as the other items I'm talking about. And then finally, I do not believe that I believe the proposed use shall materially diminish the privacy, safety, security, or enjoyment of any residential dwelling or residential neighborhood within the vicinity of the site. Personally, I've got numerous complaints over the last 3.5 years from residents across the street about this specific site, noise, etc. And so those are the reasons why I'm voting against it. Okay, any other No, sir, we're done. Any other discussion?
Mayor, if I could.
Sure.
I'd like to restate your motion for the record to make sure that I understand it.
Okay.
Which is to say that I believe that you moved approval of a special use request from 213 Ann Street, Inc., owner St. Ann LLC, for approval to modify the interior spaces at 213 Ann Street for expansion of the Fieldhouse Sports Bar into adjacent Suite B with alcohol service and conversion of vacant Suite C to be used as a pizza shop without alcohol service in the existing building. The property is zoned B3 City Center Commercial District.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, I'll go.
Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am. Go ahead.
I'm going to be an outlier this evening and be voting yes on the proposal. While not perfect, I do, have the shared understanding that this was going to be a pizza service that would be separate and without alcohol service. I think the challenges with this establishment are no different than many other establishments downtown that we need to keep working with our business owners on. And I think, while it may not be successful tonight, you do have maybe seeds that could be salvaged for something in the future.
Okay. Roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Altman.
No.
Councilmember Meadows.
No.
Mayor Pro Tem Singh.
Yes.
Mayor Brookover.
No. Okay, we move ahead then to business agenda item 5.2. Consideration of request from Dale Inman for a site plan approval located at 601 Abbott Road. The applicant's request is to construct a new condo building containing 32 units. The property is zoned RM32, City Center Multiple Family Residential District. Staff, please.
Grace
Thank you.
Whitney, Planning Department. This application came before you at the May 27th meeting. It originally went to Planning Commission. They held a public hearing on April 23rd where they did not receive any public comments. At their May 14th meeting, the Planning Commission voted unanimously to recommend approval of this application with the conditions that are listed in the staff report. They also unanimously voted to grant the applicant a parking waiver to allow for 35 spaces on site, which is within their purview to grant. Like I said, this was reviewed on May 27th, and as a site plan, there was not a public hearing at the City Council. And the proposal has not been changed since the last review, but I have added conditions that were discussed at the last council meeting within the staff report to require indoor bike parking spaces, and to also require a net decrease in stormwater runoff to be verified in final engineering review at the time of building permits.
Thank you.
Yep.
Questions for staff?
Oh, and the applicant is also here in case you have any questions.
Okay, thank you. Questions for staff or applicant? Anything? All right, what's the pleasure of the council?
I have a motion, Mayor.
Yes, sir.
I move approval of a request from Dale Inman for a site plan approval located at 601 Abbott Road. The applicant's request is to construct a new condo building containing 32 units. The property is zoned RM32, City Center Multiple Family Residential District, and that would be subject to the 7 conditions identified on pages 12 and 13 of the staff report.
Do we have a second? Second from the Mayor Pro Tem. Any discussion?
I'll just address my motion.
Yes, sir.
So I hope this is a really successful project, and I hope it inspires other people. And I want to thank the developer for being amenable to a couple of tweaks that I think will make a better project, and also want to thank staff for working with them to make this process more efficient at this meeting. So.
Okay. All those in favor of the motion say aye. Aye. All those opposed, motion passes unanimously. Good luck with the project. Item 5.3, consideration of proposed ballot language for a dedicated parks and recreational millage. Mr. Belleman, are you going to help us with this one?
Sure, so I'll start and then I will defer to City Attorney Chubb. On May 27, 2025, City Council adopted a resolution directing the city manager and city attorney to prepare proposed ballot language for a dedicated parks and recreation millage. The recommendation to secure an alternate stable revenue source for parks and recreation operation and maintenance was part of the fiscal year 2026 General Fund Deficit Reduction Plan, which contained 8 options to reduce and, if possible, eliminate the estimated $3.1 million use of fund balance. Some important dates: on April 8, 2025, City Council formally was presented the FY26 budget and program of services. On April 15, 2025, City Council held its first budget work session. April 29, 2025, Council held a special City Council discussion-only meeting on the budget and discussion on the budget deficit reduction plan. On May 7th, 2025, Audrey Kincaid, CFO, Andrea Smith, City Treasurer, and I held a town hall meeting on the preliminary FY26 budget and proposed general fund deficit reduction plan. On May 13th, 2025, City Council at its regular session held a public hearing on the proposed budget and property tax rate. On May 27th, 2025, City Council adopted the FY26 budget, tax rate, and fee schedule, and adopted 6 of the 8 recommendations included in the deficit reduction plan for the general fund. The Parks and Rec Advisory Commission attempted to call a special meeting for June 11th, but failed to get a quorum. So that meeting is scheduled for June 25th for me to sit and meet with them to talk about this ballot proposal and the desire to secure alternate funding source for Parks and Recreation. Again, the purpose of the proposed ballot language for a dedicated Parks and Rec millage is to provide stable funding source for the community's valued program services and facilities. City Council has received several communications regarding our discussion around the best way to fund Parks and Rec and balance the city's budget. Tonight, City Attorney Chubb has an amended document on language that we're asking you to consider to approve and place on the November 2025 ballot. So I'll turn it over to City Attorney Chubb.
Sure. So initially, the request from council was, what was discussed was a 2 mil millage request. And when we went back and looked at where we are as far as our tax limits within the charter, which are set forth in 10.5 of Chapter 10.5 of the charter, it initially allowed for 2 mills or 2% of the assessed value, which is 20 mills. Under Headley, that came down to 17.54 mills. And then when the income tax was passed, this section was amended to state that at any time an income tax is being raised, there would be a reduction in our total mills being assessed to real and personal property from that 20 mills as reduced by Headley down to 13. And so the city currently levies 12.54 mills, and so there's not a sufficient difference between the 12.54 and the current 13 mills for an additional 2 mills, obviously. And so this request requires an amendment of the charter, which, what we have done is propose language that in any given year that the property tax is being raised, the 13 mil limit would continue. However, the city would have the additional ability to raise 2 additional mills, which would be dedicated to Parks and Rec funding for operations and maintenance. And so the process for this is that council would pass this resolution. This resolution includes both the language that would be changed in section 10.5 as well as ballot language, because we would then be sending this to the Attorney General and the Governor for review. Once they have reviewed, it will, presuming it's granted, then it will go on the budget, on the ballot in November. If they were to reject it for any reason, this council has a right by a 4/5 vote to override that and still place it on the ballot. And it would then be, we would be able to tax that additional 2 mills after the November ballot if the initiative was successful. Since this was placed in the packet, we've been speaking with Steve Jopik and working on the transition. We proposed some additional changes, which are all referenced on the screen. And so if you go up further to the first set of highlights, these are changes, there we go, right there. So these are changes to section 10.5 that we additionally recommend. It's really just it's stating this in a different way and making sure it's clear that the monies levied can be used for those Parks and Rec operations and maintenance. And then if you go down to the second set, we changed this is the proposed language for the ballot, and it was changed to be crystal clear that obviously this is only applying during such times and in such years that the city is levying, is imposing the income tax, rather.
Can you read us that particular out loud? Read us that redlining right there.
Sure. The ballot question?
Yes, sir.
So the ballot question that would be placed on the November ballot, if this is successful, would have the title, Proposed East Lansing City Charter Amendment to allow a dedicated Parks and Recreation millage not to exceed 2 mills. The body would read, currently section 10.5 of the city charter allows the city to levy up to 13 mills on real and personal property each fiscal year for city operations. In years, the city levies, assesses, and collects an income tax. Shall the city charter be amended to provide in such years for a levy of up to 2 additional mills on real and personal property each fiscal year dedicated to city parks and recreation operations and maintenance, which would increase the total annual authorized levy to 15 mills. Shall this proposal be adopted, and has a yes or no?
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
Yeah, this seems like a significant change from
what had been proposed previously. So was the decision made that the current charter language would prohibit what was originally proposed, namely just putting 2 mills on the ballot that's dedicated to the Parks and Recreation?
Sure. So as I referenced, initially the request was just to put 2 mills, a 2 mill millage for a period of 10 years on the ballot. And the way that works is that the 2 mills would be added to our Headley cap unless there's a statutory authority under a state law to otherwise raise that, which if it was a statutory authority under state law, it would not add toward our millage cap within our charter. There isn't that, and so as a result, there are some abilities for Parks and Rec, like cooperatives, which we aren't entertaining at this time, and so this is the necessary process under the Home Rule City Act.
Mr. Mayor?
Go ahead.
Can I make a motion? I'd like to move to defer this matter to July 15th. That's about 30 days away. Still gives us time if the council decides to put it on the ballot. There's sufficient time to approve it, and it will go on the ballot. And as part of that motion, I'd like to require a list of proposed cuts should this not happen, required if it required the budget without the use of reserve funds, so that we know what the cuts are and the public would be able to evaluate those. And then a more specific statement of the impact of an increase of this nature on the average household in East Lansing. And then just note that it would be good to have this considered by us after this meeting with Parks and Recreation on the 25th, so that we have the input from that commission on what's being proposed here. So, I guess one other benefit here would be that on July 15th, all 5 council members will be present to evaluate this.
I don't actually think that's true, but
Why, you're going to
that
be gone?
remains to be seen.
If I just could
Go ahead, please.
make sure that everyone understands. So under the Home Rule City Act, there is the ability, as I referenced, to override a rejection by the governor, but one basis for rejection has consistently been, in the recent history, a reduced time to review proposed charter amendment by the Attorney General's office. And so you are correct that there would be proper time to put it on the ballot, but we may have an increased likelihood of rejection due to the timing limitations.
And I would just simply respond to that by saying, provide this to the Attorney General's office right now, which was one of the comments I think we received from another attorney, which indicated that generally they do a preliminary filing with the AG's office so they can go forward with it with that in hand. So that might be the other thing that we should do here. We've received a attorney-client privileged analysis of the status of all this, and as part of my motion, I'd like to move that we make that public so that the public will be able to review it and evaluate how they want to go forward with it.
Okay, well, is there a second to that motion? Seeing no second, the motion dies. So is there a printed copy of what's on the screen someplace? I thought somebody had given it to me before, but I can't find it in my paperwork.
No, these were changes up through our special meeting earlier today. We will provide those.
Okay. So can you go back then and read the, what I'll call the preliminary redlining?
If you wanted to recess for 5 minutes, we can get you a printed copy.
No, because I can walk up and read it.
Okay.
It's just I'm blind.
And to be,
Let me just do what I'm doing. Okay, so what I'm seeing in the second paragraph, or second section of this is, the levy shall not exceed 1 3/10% of the assessed valuation of all real and personal property subject to taxation in the city, 13 mills, for general municipal purposes, and an additional 2/10, 0.2% of the assessed valuation of all real and personal property subject to taxation in the city, 2 mills, to be dedicated for purpose of providing additional funding for city parks and recreation operations and maintenance in any year in which the city levies, assesses, and collects such an excise tax on income or income tax. Correct? Did I read it correctly?
that is correct.
Okay. And so this is not the actual ballot language, this is the resolution that we'd be passing?
This is how the language of section 10.5 of our charter would be changed if this resolution is passed and then the voters adopt the ballot language in November. Under the Home Rule City Act, the ballot language is limited to 100 words that create a fair and impartial explanation of the changes proposed in the charter, which aren't placed verbatim on the ballot.
Okay, then I'll move that we approve the proposed ballot language for a dedicated Parks and Recreation millage as set forth on the screen tonight. I'll move that, and then I'll speak to it.
Could we just clarify that that also includes the language for section 10.5 as set forth on the screen and as you just read?
Yes, that's what I mean, the entire set of stuff here, which includes and has nested in it the actual ballot language, which is what I had you read first, correct?
That is correct.
Okay. All right, that's my motion. Is there a second for the motion?
I'll second.
Second from Altman. Discussion. I'm in support of doing this, and this language is a little bit different than some of the other things that I was looking at, but I think it's important that this language make it clear, which I think is consistent with the Home Rule Cities Act, that the only use for this additional millage is for, quote, city parks and recreation operations and maintenance, end quote. I just want to make it crystal clear that that would be the only reason, and that if in fact this passed, then that would be the only use of these additional funds. The council, the city manager would not be able to somehow use this additional money for some other purposes. And in saying that, I believe that that amount is consistent with the amount that we're spending currently to fund these facilities, which after all the people decided to build as a result of prior votes. And it stands to reason for me that if you build it, you want them to come, and they have, including this building. And if you want them to come, then you have to provide services, staff, maintenance, etc. And so I think that we should take this to the voters and ask the voters to decide if they want to support these particular endeavors of the city of East Lansing in this manner. So that's why I'm going to vote for this motion. Yes, ma'am.
Sure. So on this, I would say no municipality wants to take a look at their budget and consider cuts. However, you also need to understand what your governing philosophy is. If that is that local government is here for infrastructure and public safety, being a core set of services, they then take priority in funding. I know it was referenced by the mayor just a bit ago that there was a Parks and Rec millage. I believe it was passed in 1995 and then it sunset in 2016. So for 20 years, there is Parks millage that did afford us to build the soccer complex, make deeper investments in our neighborhood parks as well. So the complete community enjoyed those, but as, again, because I don't want to steal his words he just said, but once you build it, you got to take care of it. That's part of investing in your community. And again, I think that I often have made the joke in my own personal voting record that I don't think I've met a millage I haven't voted yes on, because I know when you want to invest in your community, it does take resources. And I'm looking forward to this being on the ballot, recognizing we've had many discussions on the budget. There will be more discussions and dialogue with the community on why we find ourselves here. And I think we need to engage in all of those. So with that, thank you.
Other discussion? Dr. Ullman?
I will be supporting this, and I'll just say I'll echo the comments of the mayor and the mayor pro tem.
Okay. Any further discussion? Mr. Meadows, anything further?
I'll be voting
Sure.
no. And for specific reasons. Number one, calling this other than an operating millage is, I think, lying to the public. Right now, our Parks and Recreation Department is supported by the income tax money that is appropriated towards that use. It is supported by the fees that it charges for admission and use of our facilities, and it is supported by the general operating millage that we raise within the city of East Lansing. All we're doing is we're transferring some of that operating millage to a dedicated millage if this is actually approved by the public. And this is at the same time, and I just can't ignore, what I did in the past, which is in 2018. I made a pledge that the operating millage of the city of East Lansing, if people would vote for an income tax in this city that dedicated 60% of its revenues beyond the 5 mills that we were reducing, or the equivalent of the 5 mills that we were reducing, to pay down of our unfunded pension liability, to infrastructure improvements, to parks and recreation, and to public safety. So those items were part of the deal that we cut with the voters in order to have an income tax in the city of East Lansing. And we specifically pledged that we would not go beyond the 12.5 mils that we reduced to during that time period, as long as that income tax was in effect. We have received legal advice, that indicated that we might be able to, argue that, when we go to a specific millage for a specific purpose, that, somehow that's not a general operating millage. But if it replaces a general operating millage, it's a general operating millage. And it's a millage that will be essential. The $2 million or $2.5 million or more that is received by 2 mills will be money that replaces and releases within our general operating millage currently, money to be used elsewhere. So it's just another element of the general operating millage. So I don't think the argument that we received is a good one, number one. And I can't go back on the pledge that I made so many years ago now. And if 2030 or 2031 rolls around and the people of this community decide they're not going to pursue or agree that the income tax can go forward, I'll have a different view of this. But at this point in time, I think we're making a terrible mistake by going this way. I would rather see us take a look at the budget, and if we have to balance the budget by not using reserve funds, then we need to make the cuts that are necessary. And I think that we can do that given the size of our budget.
Okay, thank you. Any further comment?
Mayor, I have a
Yes, sir.
question. I wanted to hear what the city manager had to say.
I don't think that's appropriate.
Yeah, I think at this point that's out of order, to be honest with you. I think you can consult with him.
The city manager had his hand up, is the point.
I'm sorry, I missed that. Go ahead, Robert.
So I just wanted to clarify that the income tax for Parks and Rec has been for facilities and not for operations. And so I thought that was an important clarification, that I understand that some of the income tax is being dedicated to infrastructure and Parks and Recreation, but it's for improvements to facilities and to our parks and not for operations. And what we're asking tonight is to support the operations that the general fund is currently struggling to be able to achieve.
Okay, could we have a roll call vote, please?
Councilmember Altman,
Yes.
Councilmember Meadows,
No.
Mayor Pro Tem Singh,
Yes.
Mayor Brookover.
Yes. Okay, we then move on to item 5.4, consideration of a request to reorganize city government pursuant to Chapter 5.1 of the East Lansing City Charter by creating a Community and Economic Development Department and a Treasury Department. Mr. Belleman.
As you've previously mentioned, the request is pursuant to Chapter 5.1 of the East Lansing City Charter that any reorganization must be approved by the City Council. It's aimed at improving efficiency and collaboration, aligning our priorities, and reducing workloads. So there's a request to elevate community and economic development into a separate department. It currently resides within the planning, building, and community development. It would be responsible for the Brownfield Redevelopment Authority, the Downtown Development Authority, the Local Development Finance Authority, or Smart Zone, and the Community Development Program. It would be required and continue to develop a comprehensive economic development plan, identify needs and priorities in the city, identify incentives, and actively support current businesses and attract new. The second component is to elevate the city treasurer on the same level as the city clerk. I see the city treasurer as an officer of this community and this organization as identified by the city charter, and I make those recommendations to you, or that recommendation.
Do you have a proposed motion for us?
My recommendation is, of course, to reorganize or approve the reorganization requested.
So moved.
I'll state the motion, if I could.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
I'll state the motion, if I could. I'll make a motion.
Well, I think Meadows just did, but
Fine.
why don't you elaborate on the motion, please?
So
for the record.
I move to approve the request to reorganize city government pursuant to Chapter 5.1 of the East Lansing City Charter by creating a Community and Economic Development Department and a Treasury Department.
Okay.
I take that as a friendly amendment.
Okay, and I'll second it. Okay? Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, motion passes unanimously. Item 5.5, consideration of a contract with Spicer Group in a not-to-exceed amount of $231,300 for engineering services for the Harrison Road Rehabilitation Project, and authorize the city manager to sign. Council, I'm running out of power in my watch, so I don't know what time it is. Does council want to take a short break here, or do you want to keep plowing through? Want to keep going through?
Keep going.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead. I thought, Mr. Lacasse, we were going to give you a little break, but it ain't going to happen tonight.
That'll work. Good evening, Council. Ron Lacasse, Director of Public Works, and I have with me Stephen Clayton, the Engineering Administrator. I apologize if I start coughing. I'll try to make it through. I got cough drop and water, but I'll try to get through the items that you have in front of you. I'm going to give a little bit of history on this project just because of a lot of the attention that's been given to it over the last several months. So just to explain the funding for the Harrison Road Design Project, the city participates in a 4-year transportation improvement program process through the Tri-County Regional Planning Commission. And this is a process that divides up federal transportation dollars to road agencies in the area. The Harrison project was originally programmed through this process for 2028, and we are currently working through a process to switch the Harrison Road project with our Elbert Street project, which was originally in 2026. And the two reasons for that was to avoid conflict with our CWSRF project and the work that's going to be going on in that area. So we thought it better to delay that project until the CWSRF project has concluded, and also bumping this project up fit with what we're receiving for input from the residents about the importance of this corridor. So of the funds for this project, the total project cost in that in the TIP, the Tri-County program, is $1.5 million. The federal share is $1.2 million. City share is $305,000. So that's the funding for the construction portion of this project, so everybody understands where that comes from. So while the recent attention to the corridor is the reason we split the RFP into 3 phases, the safety of pedestrians crossing Harrison to access the school, the site distance concerns for traffic exiting North Lawn onto Harrison because of the hill, and the speed of vehicles on Harrison were known problems for many years, so that was always going to receive additional attention during this design process. So as a result of the recent complaints, we split the design into 3 phases. Again, we've talked about this, but the phase 1 will focus on the short term, what can we do now and get implemented before school starts in the fall to make the crossing, the pedestrian crossing to the school as safe as possible until the larger design is completed and construction takes place in 26. As part of that process, we have a 30-day timeline, get the analysis done. We want to be able to reach out to the residents and seek their feedback if there are multiple options, as well as the school district, before we come to council with any contracts. Phase 2 of the project focuses on the part of the corridor from South Lawn to Saginaw. And the reason for that is the pedestrian crossing for the school and the hill and the site distance issues with North Lawn, to see what we can do to improve that. And again, we're asking the engineer to come up with all the different options to improve the site distance, the pedestrian crossing, and also incorporate a design that helps reinforce the speed limit of that corridor. Try to do all 3 as much as we can. So with that process, again, we're looking for all options on the table. There's been lots of options brought forward by residents, and we're looking for a consultant to address all of those options as well as anything else. Traffic engineers will bring a lot of experience to bear of things they've done in other communities, things like that. So we're looking for them to look at that section of the corridor, again, bring ideas to the city, which will then reach out to residents and the school district and kind of vet through the options. And finally, the phase 3 of the design takes everything learned from phase 1 and 2, incorporates that into the full design of the project from Grand River to Saginaw Street. So I just wanted to add that bit of background just so everybody understood, and hopefully that'll add clarity to people with questions. So the design, we had 8 consultants turn in proposals, and each firm was evaluated by 4 staff members, 3 from engineering and 1 from finance. They were evaluated based on their understanding of the project needs, the experience of the firm and staff, approach to the project, and accessibility. And Spicer Group was indicated as the most qualified candidate through that scoring process. And with that, I'm open to any questions you have.
I have a question. So of this $231,300, this is all our money, right?
Correct. That's major street funds.
Okay.
Correct.
And so you're talking about a 3-phase project. I mean, do we have the ability under this process to have 1 phase, is it $231,300 for all 3 phases?
Correct.
Okay. So we don't.
And construction inspection of the project being constructed as well.
Okay, but I think you talked about the first phase being essentially giving us a analysis of what things could be done in the immediate future in terms of ameliorating the situation of Glen Karen. So let's say we got that recommendation and we decided that's all we need right now. I mean, do we have the ability to at some point in time say, you know what, we don't want you to go ahead with the rest of this at this point in time? Or are we essentially thank you, committing ourselves to the entire 231,000 without any ability to say, yeah, we've got all the data we need right now, we don't need you to do anything more.
These are not to exceed dollars, so if we wanted to skip phase 2 and just go to phase 3, full project design, we could certainly do that and skip out of phase 2. They did price their proposal. It's about $13,300 for phase 1, $14,200 for phase 2, and $173 for phase 3.
And 173 is the actual construction design?
That's the design and the construction inspection.
Okay, so does that design anticipate actually cutting down the hill on Harrison? Or is that what we're paying $173,000 for them to tell us whether that's a good thing to do or not?
The cutting down of the hill is one among many options they'll look at to improve the safety and sight distance of the corridor. I know that's been brought up, but there's lots of other things that can be done. But cutting down that hill is something we've requested they look at for the sight distance for North Lawn.
Okay.
But
So
the $173,000, we're designing the whole corridor anyway, so we can take advantage of those federal funds for construction of the project. So we could certainly reduce any phase of this, and just money wouldn't be spent, and they'd finish the design, and we'd still go to construction for the whole corridor in '26.
Okay. Other questions? Dr. Altman?
So what we're voting on in terms of spending is everything through construction, correct? Just to be perfectly clear.
This
about
is
it.
for design and construction inspection. It's not the construction contract.
Got it. So in terms of decision points, right, the analyst or the contractor is going to do an analysis and then come back to us with recommendations. And then at some point down the road, we make a decision about how to structure the construction, correct?
Yes.
Okay,
That's the intent. We're hamstrung a little bit by the lack of meetings and get something built before fall. So we want to reach out to residents and things like that. But depending on what they recommend for those short-term fixes, we will have to come back to council and ask for a contract to put those into place.
So here's my question. If somebody's concerned about shaving down the hill, okay, can we tell them, yeah, we're going to be making that decision at a later point?
Absolutely.
We're not making that decision tonight.
Absolutely not. They're just looking at what
Okay.
they recommend from a traffic engineering standpoint to improve the safety of the crosswalk, the sight distance at North Lawn, and to look at a design that reinforces the speed limit.
Okay.
That's all we're doing at this point.
Right, so we're doing design at this point, and then we're going to have a set of options.
Yes, and there will be public input from the public
Yep.
after phase 1 and phase 2.
Yep.
Before incorporating in the final design.
And I think the city manager had his hand up.
So Ron and I met today, with Stephen too. We're trying to get a meeting with the neighborhood along Harrison sometime the end of June, first part of July, either June 30th, 1st or 2nd of July, just to have the conversation and to follow up on some of the concerns that were communicated to council. One in particular is, typically once the city commits to engineering, that it's too late if we don't make our concerns known. And so I said, we've heard what your concern is, especially with this realignment of that hill, that grade, and how it may impact their driveway. So, Ron and I are hoping to touch base with them, like I said, end of June, first part of July.
I appreciate the outreach on that front. I think it's really important.
And I guess just for the record, I don't believe we're going to be able to get rid of all of that hill. There's going to be utility concerns. There's going to be
I don't even want
driveway
to. I don't
grades,
even want
that
to
type
talk
of
about
thing.
the hill right now. Okay,
The what?
We're not there, right?
No.
Isn't that the point of this whole conversation? All we're doing is having an engineering study, and we're
Correct.
paying $231,000 for an engineering study to look at alternatives. The hill might be one of the alternatives, but we're not there yet.
Nope, absolutely.
Mr. Bellman?
It's really only about 27,000 between phase 1 and phase 2. That's the analysis of the options.
Oh, okay.
The rest of it is for construction design.
Oh, I totally misunderstood that.
Yeah,
I'm
no,
sorry.
it's
That-
only
that-
about $27,000.
Okay. Well, 27,000 here and
I
27,000
understand.
there, and pretty soon
I
you're talking
understand.
real money, even at my house. But the reality is, that makes it feel a lot better, because that's what I was trying to suss out before and not artfully doing that.
This
Go-
is
go ahead, Mr.
approval
Mills.
Of all of the phases at this point in time, correct?
That's correct.
Correct.
Okay, including the engineering phase.
That's correct.
Okay. And just one question about the, I guess, the schedule. You know, the schedule that's attached to this, which would be something we'd approve, shows construction in June and July of 2026, which is long after the time which this neighborhood wants some action with regard to this. I'll note that paragraph 14 of the contract appears to say we can terminate at any time. So if we decide we're not going forward with shaving the hill, let's say, then, you know, we could terminate this contract at some point. I'm in favor of this, but I do want to make sure that as we go forward, that we fully engage the neighborhood, particularly, even if it's not that neighborhood, the families of the children who are crossing that street on a daily basis. And I'll note one other thing, which is based on one of the comments that we received in the mail, I think today. There was a comment about sort of the problem of the drop-off at the school, which is not a design that we approved. That's a design adopted by the school district. Can we make some evaluation of that part of this contract so that if there's a carve-out or something that's necessary to improve traffic through there, even at a slow rate, I think that might be useful as well.
I think all of the suggestions we're receiving will be presented to the engineer to evaluate.
I know.
And we are involving the school district in this process.
Mayor Pro Tem.
Just wanted to say for the record in confirmation that the corridor reference is from Grand River to Saginaw along
Correct.
Harrison.
Correct.
Okay, that full corridor there. And then I just want to mention a couple of things that I am plan on supporting this. Glad we're going to be moving forward with this next step. Glad we clarified on the budget uses within here. I want to make a point only because the last day of school, our crossing guard just north on Harrison said she's not going to do it next year because she had direct conflict with drivers driving like jerks. And so I think, again, this is one part in the toolbox that we can implement as a community to help increase safety within our community. I think enforcement remains another tool in the toolbox we need to continue to implement, and be kind. No one needs to yell at a crossing guard. You shouldn't be speeding. You shouldn't be texting. All of those things. Okay. Thank you, sir.
If we don't already have a motion, I move we approve a contract with Spicer Group in a not-to-exceed amount of $231,300 for engineering services for the Harrison Road Rehabilitation Project and authorize the city manager to sign.
Second.
Moved by Brookover, seconded by Singh. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, motion passes unanimously. Thank you, staff and council, for your clarifying questions and information. We then move to item 5.6, consideration of ordinance number 1551, supplementing ordinance number 1296 to authorize and provide for the issuance of additional series of revenue bonds to pay the cost of acquisition and construction of improvements to the City of East Lansing's sewage disposal system in an amount not to exceed $46 million. $46 million here, $46 million there. Pretty soon you're talking real money. Which leads me to my first question. Whose money is this?
That's a complicated question, and I will
Okay.
get to that. With me, I have Roger Sweats from Dickinson Wright, bound counsel for the project. Also in the audience remains Stephen Clayton, our engineering administrator, and Bob Shireman, who I brought out of retirement for a couple months to help me out 2 years ago. So and he still comes back every day. So he's been invaluable in this process. So on March 4th, 2025, an intent to issue bond resolution was approved by council in an amount not to exceed $51 million. for improvements to the city's water resource recovery facility and sewer collection system. So the notice of intent to issue bonds was published in the City Pulse on March 12th, notifying the electorate of the proposed bond issue, starting a 45-day right of referendum. The referendum expired on April 26th, and no petitions were filed. The next step in the bonding process is for City Council to approve the bond authorizing ordinance to provide issuance of the revenue bonds. The amount is somewhat lower than original because we've now gotten the bids in, and we believe the $46 million is a number that will cover as things get worked out through that process. The ordinance authorizes the bonds in an amount not to exceed $46 million, which again allows that flexibility as things get finalized through EGLE. The ordinance allows the issuance of the sale of, and the finance director to execute all documents related to the issuance. The project eligible costs will be funded by CWSRF loan funds at 2.5% over a 20-year period. And then here comes the who's paying for it part. The project is split between two projects, C2, which is the sewer improvement project in Cedar Village and up Milford through the Bailey neighborhood, which is only partially SRF fundable, and the WRF project, W2, that is fully fundable. So the WRF portion of the project is 26.67% East Lansing, 40% MSU, and 33.3% Meridian Township. The sewer project is 93.7% East Lansing, 6.2% Meridian. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
So on the 46 million, the 46 million is divided between all those different entities. Am I understanding that correctly?
Yes, the sewer project total cost, and when you're talking about the loan, you're not just talking construction.
I understand.
Engineering, design, and everything else is lumped into the loan cost. That's about $23 million. The WRF project is $25 million. And of that, if I sum up for the CWSRF funds, the city's portion of that $48 million total is about $23.8 million is our portion. MSU's is $10 million, and Meridian's is $9.7 million.
Okay, and so we're actually going out in the market, we're issuing these bonds at an interest rate, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
2.5%.
Can I buy one of these bonds?
Just a slight
Please.
adjustment to that is that these bonds are being sold to the state as part of the Clean Water State Revolving Fund program, which is why we're getting a subsidized reduced interest rate of 2.5%.
Right.
So these bonds will actually be held by the state and they will not be traded.
So the state will buy these bonds, thereby providing us with the money, and we're paying the state at a 2.5% interest rate.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Other questions? Yes, sir.
My understanding is that there was a change on page 4 of the proposal, and I'm prepared to read the new text into the record, but I was wondering if you could address briefly the context of that change.
Yeah, thank you for accommodating that. I apologize. Our timelines are fairly constrained here, and after we had the draft of the ordinance out on Friday, we noticed a slight anomaly in the resolution that approved the last set of bonds in 2021 that did something a little bit unusual that effectively set up a second what we call additional bonds test. And so as revenue bonds, and there have been 5 previous actions that closely mirror what you have in front of you tonight. And the first 4 had a test that said before you can issue any new bonds, you have to demonstrate that the revenues for the last completed fiscal year provided net revenues sufficient to at least pay 100% of the debt service on the bonds. That sounds kind of self-explanatory and common sense, but it's a formal legal test that we have to meet. And since the draft went out on Friday, we noticed that the 2021 resolution effectively set up a second test that applied to the 2021 bonds, it said we have to look at the last 2 fiscal years. So for the first 4 bonds, we're looking at the last fiscal year. For the last bonds, we're looking at the last 2 completed fiscal years. And so we just tweaked that language so that we reference both tests. By adopting the ordinance, the council will find that those tests are met. Your financial advisor, MFCI, has looked at that and provided a report to show that, in effect, we do meet both tests.
All right, so I guess I have a motion, which is to approve Ordinance 1551, supplementing Ordinance 1296, to authorize and provide for the issuance of additional series of revenue bonds to pay the cost of acquisition and construction of improvements to the City of East Lansing sewage disposal system in an amount not to exceed $46 million. And the Ordinance 1551 I'm moving is the one attached to the agenda item report with the following amendment. I'm going to read the amended paragraph into the record, and I think we can get the clerk a copy of the hard copy so that they don't have to try to figure out what I'm saying, but at least this way it'll be in the record. So it's the paragraph on page 4 of the ordinance starting the City Council. I'm just going to read the paragraph. As amended, the City Council determines that if the Series 2025 bonds...
Excuse me, let me just interrupt you.
Yep.
You're talking about the paragraph, the second paragraph under Section 4?
That is correct.
Okay, just to item.
Yes,
Okay.
that is correct. The City Council determines that if the Series 2025 bonds are issued within the parameters of this ordinance, with interest as provided in the contract documents, then during the preceding operating year, the adjusted net revenues of the system shall be at least equal to 100% of the maximum amount of principal and interest thereafter maturing in any operating year on the outstanding revenue bonds and the Series 2025 bonds as required by Section 20 of Ordinance Number 1296 for the issuance of additional revenue bonds, and the adjusted net revenues of the system for the last 2 preceding 12-month operating years, or the adjusted net revenues for the last preceding 12-month operating year, if the same shall be lower than the average, shall be equal to at least 100% of the maximum amount of principal and interest thereafter maturing in any operating year on the outstanding revenue bonds and the Series 2025 bonds as required by Section 15 of Resolution Number 2021-11. The City Council determines that the city is not in default in making its required payments to the Operation and Maintenance Fund or the Revenue Bond Redemption Fund established by Ordinance Number 1296. Therefore, the City Council finds that the conditions of the prior ordinance for the issuance of the Series 2025 bonds as additional revenue bonds have been met.
End paragraph?
End paragraph.
And that's a direct substitution for the second paragraph, correct?
Correct.
Okay. I second the motion. Any further discussion? Go ahead.
Question, I guess. I want to confirm that, these bonds are paid off by user fees. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, motion passes unanimously. We then move to item 5.7, consideration of a resolution to tentatively award a construction contract for wastewater system improvements for Project C2 River Water's Edge Sewer District improvements in Milford Gunson sewer improvements and Wilmarth Woodmere relief to Dunnigan Brothers, Inc. in an amount of $19,829,116.70 and authorize the city manager to sign. Further, consideration of a resolution to tentatively award a construction contract for wastewater system improvements for Project W2 operational facilities and treatment optimization improvements to FH Passion in an amount of $22,649,000 and authorize the city manager to sign. Staff, please.
Good evening, Council. Again, Ron Lacoste, Director of Public Works. In October of 2024, the city was notified by the Michigan Department of Environment, Great Lakes, and Energy that the above two projects would be funded under the FY25 Clean Water State Revolving Fund Program. Just a quick summary, C2 is a partial sewer separation project. New stormwater outfall located along the Red Cedar River and a flow control structure near the river that would allow excess flow to back up into the tunnel down Grand River. The W2 project is one of the final phases at the Water Resource Recovery Facility, getting to the administrative building, which holds the operations for the facility, the new lab, but also upgrade locker rooms and restrooms to be address equity issues and ADA compliance issues with the elevator. On May 5th, both projects were advertised for bids, and on June 5th, bids were received for both projects. On C2, 5 bids were received, and the low bid was Dunnigan Brothers Construction. And again, of this project, 93.7% is East Lansing, and 6.3% is Meridian Township. Dunnigan Brothers is a known contractor in the area, has done lots of projects, and our consultant, Fishbeck, analyzed their bid and had conversations and is confident that they understand the scope of the project and can perform the work. Also on June 6th, we received 3 bids for the WRF project, and FH Passion was low bid for $22,649,000. And again, East Lansing is responsible for 26.67%, MSU 40%, and Meridian Township 33.33%. Again, Tetra Tech reached out, our consultant for the project, and is comfortable with the contractor, that they understand the scope of the project and can do it for the price quoted. This contractor also just completed or is working on the completion of a large drinking water SRF project at Elmswa. So there's some direct experience there that's helpful. In order to proceed with these projects, the city will be submitting application number 3 to Eagle for establishing the final loan costs, which is why the tentative award until we get through that process, with the ultimate loan closing expected to occur on August 28th. Based on the bids, we currently anticipate applications to be based on a total project cost of $48,534,219.70, with an eligible SRF cost of $43,750,000 and an ineligible cost of $4,784,000. And I'm, again, here to answer any questions you may have.
Any questions for staff on this one?
Just the same question I had before. These will be paid off with user fees, is that correct?
Correct.
And so ultimately, on both of these items that we're looking at, the prior one and this one, people may expect their water bill to go up?
Yes, and the current water sewer rate structure for 26 was anticipating these projects as part of that.
Thank you.
Okay, do we have a motion?
I move that we tentatively award a construction contract for wastewater system improvements for Project C2, River Water's Edge Sewer District Improvements, and Milford Gunson Sewer Improvements, and Wilmarth Woodmere Relief to Dunnigan Brothers, Inc., in an amount of $19,829,116.70, and authorize the city manager to sign. And further, that we tentatively award a construction contract for wastewater system improvements for Project W2, Operational Facilities and Treatment Optimization Improvements, to FH Passion in an amount of $22,649,000, and authorize the city manager to sign.
And I second the motion. Moved by Altman, seconded by Brookover. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, motion passes unanimously. We then move to item 5.8, excuse me, consideration of a resolution authorizing the issuance of general obligation limited tax bonds, Series 2025, for the ineligible portions of the improvements to the sewer collection system in an amount not to exceed $6 million. Staff.
Good evening, Council. Ron Lacoste again, Director of Public Works. Do I really have to keep saying this?
Thanks for coming, Ron. Really appreciate your presence here tonight.
No problem. Yes. On April 8th of 25, a resolution for intent to issue general obligation limited tax bonds was approved by council in an amount not to exceed $6 million for improvements to the city sewer system. A notice of intent was published in the City Pulse on April 16, 2025, notifying the electorate of the proposed bond issue and starting the 45-day right of referendum. Expiration of the referendum was on May 31st, 2025, and no petition was filed. The next step in the bond process is for City Council to approve the bond authorizing resolution to provide for the issuance of the proposed bonds.
Any questions for staff? Go ahead.
So this is the portion of the ineligible costs that are not eligible for the SRF funding, and that's what this is intended to cover. Yes.
And these bonds you might be able to purchase.
That is correct.
And these are at what? These are at 6%?
Not to exceed.
What does that mean?
So the resolution lays out outward parameters of the amount that could be borrowed and the interest rate that could be charged. We do that in parameters because the bonds will be sold at a competitive sale. So there'll be a date and time set where there'll be a notice of sale published in a national newspaper called The Bond Buyer, and then we'll take bids from the entire bond buying world, and by law, the city will be required to accept the lowest bid. In order to have to prevent the city council from coming in for a midday special meeting on that day, we just set these broad parameters knowing that this is going to be bid. It's going to be done at the lowest bid that you receive. You have to do that by law. So we're just setting an outward parameter. It's not going to be anywhere near that rate.
And you're pretty sure that these folks are still going to want to invest in bonds from the city of East Lansing, correct?
I would, I am not your financial advisor, but I know your financial advisor believes that these bonds will be readily sellable.
Thank you. Any other questions for staff? Do we have a motion?
I move that we authorize the issuance of general obligation limited tax bonds, Series 2025, for the ineligible portions of the improvements to the sewer collection system in an amount not to exceed $6 million.
Second.
Moved by Alman, seconded by Meadows. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, motion passes unanimously. Item 5.9, consideration of the proposed renewal of property and casualty insurance with MMRMA for the period July 1st, 2025 through July 1st, 2026, in the combined amount not to exceed $813,702, and authorize the city manager to sign. Mr. City Manager. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Matt Tork's here. Matt is our risk manager for the city and has been handling our relationship with Michigan Municipal Risk Management Authority, and so he's here to present the renewal for next fiscal year, which starts July 1.
Yep.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Robert. Again, my name is Matt Torek. I work in the finance department. I help administer risk management activities for the city, including the annual liability and property insurance renewal before you tonight. Tonight, we are recommending that the city renew its current liability and property insurance through the Michigan Municipal Risk Management Authority, or MMRMA. The total premium for the coverage this year is $813,712, which represents a 2.8% increase from the previous year and is under the 5% increase we budgeted for in fiscal year 26. The 2.8% increase represents the lowest percentage increase in premiums for the city in the past 5 years, where we've seen closer to a 12 to 15% average increase. Coverage with the MMRMA remains the same from this past year, including one liability policy covering city exposures up to $15 million per occurrence. All real and personal property are protected on a blanket replacement cost basis, as well as other lines of coverage, including auto physical damage and crime coverage. Data breach, cyber liability insurance is also included with a limit of $2 million per claim. Besides the coverage itself, one of the primary reasons we want to remain a member of the MMRMA is to take advantage of the different grant opportunities available to members after their first full year of membership. So under these grant programs, the MMRMA will share in the costs of specific risk reduction related purchases with the city. So among the different grant programs, we've already identified 7 purchases that will be eligible for funding and anticipate over $186,000 in $186,000 in expense reimbursements from MRMA this upcoming fiscal year. There's other benefits for maintaining membership with the MMRMA, such as training and their net asset distribution program, but in the interest of time, I won't get into those here tonight. Instead, I will stop talking and would be happy to answer any questions you might have.
I have a couple questions for you, but maybe for the city manager. So I just want to make sure that we clarify this for the public. So we buy this insurance, but for what they term the liability coverage, which is the general coverage for negligence, et cetera, we have $100,000 per occurrence that we have to pay, correct? The first $100,000?
Correct.
And this may be unfair to you, but I think Mr. Bellman can answer that. Does that include attorney's fees?
Yes.
Okay. So in other words, the $100,000, the first $100,000 goes to attorney's fees and any kind of liability settlement, correct?
Correct.
Okay. That's the only question I have. Other questions? Anything else? We have a motion?
I move that we authorize the renewal of property and casualty insurance with MMRMA for the period July 1, 2025 through July 1, 2026 in the combined amount not to exceed $813,712 and authorize the city manager to sign.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Meadows, moved by Altman. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion, all those opposed, motion passes unanimously. Item 5.10, consideration of a current year budget amendment to fiscal year 2025 for various funds in the combined amount of $1,679,565. Mr. Bellman, or, we're graced with your presence tonight.
Yeah, this one's all Audrey, so.
Thank you so much.
I told Andrew I was going to show up at 9:30. I was right on the money.
Yeah, you did pretty well.
So tonight, Audrey Kincaid, CFO. So tonight we have our final budget amendment for fiscal year 25. This is a much smaller amendment that we've seen in kind of historical June amendments. So this is really just sort of a cleanup of items, mostly related to the income tax revenue, because we always sort of estimate low on our revenue, and then we catch ourselves up as we see collections throughout the year. So a majority of the amendment relates to the additional revenue for income tax and the related allocations out for pension and then public safety and infrastructure. What you're approving tonight on the attachment is the column that is labeled 6/17/2025 proposed amendments, and that is the total amendment that you're approving. But I wanted to provide for you sort of in context. So this is the entire city budget and all amendments that have occurred thus far. Throughout the year, there have been several contracts that have had and related budget amendment as part of those approvals. So I wanted to provide you some of that. And that is the summation of those are in the council approved amendments column, sort of third from the right. I can go through as many or as few of these items as you would like.
Any questions for staff?
Just the net impact on the budget that we approved.
So for this amendment is $1,679,565.
But is that both revenue and expense?
That is the increase in appropriation. So it's the net difference.
Okay.
Okay, other questions? Do we have a motion?
I'll go ahead and move approval of fiscal year 2025 budget amendments as identified in the schedules attached to the agenda item report. in the combined amount of $1,679,565.
And I second the motion, moved by Altman, seconded by Brookover. Any discussion? Mr. Meadows, you had something?
No, I'm about
Oh,
to say yes.
You're opposed to vote? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, say nay, and the motion passes unanimously. We appear to be at the end of our agenda tonight, ladies and gentlemen.
Move to adjourn.
We have a motion to adjourn. Is there a second? Moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Nay, whatever, and we are adjourned. Motion passes unanimously.